So if you play knight c4, you're taking a tempo on my bishop. At the same time, I cannot go to c7 because, which is like probably the best square. But if I go to c7, then you're taking on c5, and I am losing a pawn. Yeah, you said that probably bishop e7 is not good because I am losing a tempo. But something that you have to consider is that you're losing a tempo as well, right? Because after I play bishop d6, you are going to c4. To a certain extent, it looks like you're winning a tempo, but now your knight is not on e5, and you're not defending on d3, and you're not attacking on c6, and that's something that I liked, you know? So, even though I'm losing a tempo, your knight is going probably to... Maybe you can argue that this is a better square, but even then, you're not making pressure here, and you're not defending here. So that's kind of good for me. It just is a slightly like subtle way to proceed in this position, but it made a lot of sense. So see how now my pieces are all out. Yours are still like without finishing their development. I have the control of the center right now. Everybody has like a good position in terms of my pieces. Everybody's doing everything properly, but at the same time, your king is kind of misplaced here. You should try to play king e2 or just castle or do something about it. This pawn on d3 is also weak. And even though these pawns are weak, there are no easy ways to exploit them. Whereas this pawn on d3 is like, I'll just put a rook here and I'll try to take advantage of that. So that's kind of annoying for you. See how even though this is weak, you have generated a weakness in your own position that might be dangerous for you. So king e2, okay, that makes sense because you're bringing your king towards the center. Castle, because I want to connect my rooks and then bring my rooks towards the attack, and that might be cool. So also see how I have, even though these pawns are really bad, at the same time they're giving me some lines to act upon with my rooks. So if I put my rooks in these two files, it is really easy for me to get my pieces active, whereas your rooks have no good squares to go to. So even though it seems like your position is okay, it is not so okay, you know, in terms of strategy. I have compensation for these two pawns because the position is going to be open, and I have the pair of bishops. So that's good for me. At the same time, this knight's going to go to a3, probably to c2, but that's not... doesn't seem natural in this position for me, because see how even if you play d4, then you're getting rid of one of my weaknesses, which is good for me, and you're getting rid of one of your defenders to your knight on c4, so that's also good for me to a certain extent. So, knight d8-3, I don't know, kind of dubious. I don't like that move that much. Even though it seems like it makes sense, the only reason why I will play knight here is not to play knight c2, but to play knight c4, with my knight on a3. Like, for example, in this position, knight a3, let's say something like, I don't know, what I played was rook fd8. I was expecting something like knight e5 followed by knight c4, and then f4, and this is active, you know. Maybe it's not gonna work, but that's an idea that I had in my mind that I thought was gonna be kind of annoying to play against. So I was thinking, well, rook hd1, I thought, well, this is good for me. You're just reacting to my moves, and probably a slightly more active way to proceed, knight e5 followed by knight c4, and see how your knight on e5 is in a good square, your knight on c4 is in a good square, and if you can play f4 or something like that, then you have control of the center. At the same time, you're touching the pawn on c4, on c6, and now I have to defend it, because if I lose it, then that's not so good for my position. Let's take a look here. But the way you played with knight c2, it's kind of passive, because if you play d4, then you're getting rid of one of my weaknesses. Yeah, that's not too good. I would recommend you, though, to find on the board what are the best squares for your pieces, you know? Because the problem here is that your pieces are not going to the best squares, and you're not trading the pieces which you should be trading, you know? In this position, for example, you should have traded this piece here. That might have been good for you. In this position, for example, your knights are going backwards, and then your position is not going so well because your pieces are just going to unnatural squares. So I do believe that you should be trying to figure out what are the best squares that you have on the board for your pieces, and try to get there. What's the best square for your pieces here? What's your ideal position? Your ideal position is not to have this knight here, but to have this knight here and this knight here, right? The way to do so is just knight e5 followed by knight c4. The less pieces that are on the board, the better for you, because you can exploit this easier and you can get your pieces active. Because on one hand you do not have a space, and on the other hand you do not have like a good control of the center. So if you do not have a space, usually what you want to do is trade pieces. And in this position you have the advantage of having a better pawn structure. The more pieces you trade, the harder it is for me to defend these pawns, because the only guys who can defend these pawns are pieces, you know? So that should be good for you. I wouldn't be afraid of this knight g4, because trading pieces is good for you. You have to realize when trading a piece is good or when trading a piece is bad for you, right? So knight d5 is okay. I wouldn't be concerned about knight here. I think that you could even have traded here, like for example knight here, let's say rook here. Let's say that you get to put your knight here. If you get to trade it for this knight, I do believe it's okay. And then you can bring your other knight and try to do the same thing. Maybe playing f3 to keep away some checks. But I like the fact that you're considering what's going on the board, and I like the fact that you are thinking what's going to happen, right? And you're giving logical explanation for what you were doing, right? But you have to evaluate more precisely, or to assess more precisely what's going on the board. Does that make sense? So rook h d1, I like the fact that you said in this position that you wanted to bring the rook, because that rook was doing nothing on h1, and I agree with you. So rook h d1 makes sense. Not with the other rook too, because the other rook might be the defender of this pawn on b2 in the future. So I do believe that kind of makes sense. Another way to defend this pawn on b2, I guess, could have been just to play rook d2, rook d1, and then try to break or something just to get some activity. But I don't know. It's not so clear now because your position is starting to get hard to play. How come? Because your pieces are not in good squares in comparison with my pieces, which are natural squares here, like f6, f5, e7 makes sense, and everybody's just defending everything. So knight d5, the idea is now the best square for my knight is almost without any doubt d5, so that my knight is on the center, and now I have some squares to go to here. My plan was, actually you were thinking, why did I play f6? You said that I played f6 to have some room for my bishop here. That wasn't actually the motive why I played that. That was one of the benefits of it, but it's not necessarily the reason why I played that. Like h3, f6, right? The reason why I play f6 is because I know that the best square for your knight is here, right? And I don't want you to go there. So now I'm limiting your movements, right? f6 is a move of embracing you, basically. Just as Karpov will do sometimes, you know? I'm basically just letting you play whatever you want to play, even though h3 doesn't seem to make a lot of sense also. I will, like, if I had to throw an idea right now, I would say that rook d2, rook here or something might be better. But h3 is something that is not concerning me. What I want to do is I want to get rid of the squares that are going to be good for you. So there is going to, a time is going to come where you have your pieces out, but your pieces have no moves. And that's exactly what I want. So see how when I play f6 and when I play e5 is to restrain the move of your bishop and to restrain the move of your knight. And if I get to obstruct all the moves of your pieces, then everything starts to collapse because you have no moves. So see how f6, g4 is not something to be concerned of in this position for me because it is doing nothing. Like g4, okay, you're moving my bishop to g6. What are you doing now? Or what's my bishop doing now which wasn't doing before on f5, right? It's just the same thing. Having a bishop on f5 and having a bishop here, the same thing. Nothing wrong for me. And now I have another debility to exploit in the future, so I might just play h5, and I could create some debilities in your position. So that's good for me, if you are debilitating your position here. You have nothing to attack with, because see how you're moving all your pieces towards the queen side, and then you try to attack on the king side. Does that make sense? That's kind of weird, right? It's not necessarily to say it's wrong or it's a giant mistake or something. It's just like strategically, if you're playing strategical positions, then you have to really comprehend what's going on the board, because the problem with chess is that there are so many interpretations that even what I am saying right now might be wrong, right? So I'm just giving the explanations why I'm creating these moves on the board. But even then I might be wrong. The guy who is the one who understands what's going on the board the best and acts upon it is the guy who wins. So you have to understand what's going on the board. So see how you were thinking that I wanted to play bishop f7? I don't want to play bishop f7. My bishop on g6 is okay. It's probably the best square for my bishop. So I want to play e5, and now your knight here is doing nothing. It is a really cool knight. I've talked about this on my videos before, but what are you doing with this knight, right? This knight on e3, what are you doing with this knight? My pawn on c6 is good because it is stopping you from having knight d5. My pawn on f6 is good because it's stopping you from having knight d5. So that's good. And if I get to play e5, then I'm stopping you from having anything like d4, which is like the only way you can try to liberate the position, and that's even harder for you to play. So see how I'm just increasing the control of the position. Even though it doesn't look like that, it seems like I'm playing just common chess, like something silly here, but it's just with those ideas. Knight c2, see how I'm just improving the position of my pieces. My rook is going to the semi-open file here, just to get even more activity. Now this knight is kind of starting to look a little bit overworked, because it has to be always having an eye here, and that's kind of annoying. Rook b1, you are defending, and now e5, and what are you gonna do now, right? The problem is that, what are you gonna do now? The position is really hard to play, because you have no moves. Like, your pieces are out, but what are they doing? Not too much, right? So basically I'm being the snake here, which is embracing you and killing you slowly, you know? That's kind of annoying. That's the problem of playing strategical. You have to comprehend a strategy properly. But I do like the fact that you're improving in your chess. I like the fact that you're thinking what's going on the board. This bishop d2 extremely passive and not good. Because there are so many tactics here. It just doesn't seem nice. But knight b6 is extremely annoying. So the problem is that the pawn on d3 is falling, the knight on c4 is falling, the knight on c2 is falling, everybody's falling, you know? That's not good. So see how in this position everything seems to be okay, and then after bishop d2 everything is collapsing. Exactly. And see how bishop d2 now, let's say that you didn't play bishop d2, let's say some other moves shows like f3 or something, I don't know. Even then just knight b6, I guess, is just extremely annoying to play against. Because then you have to take, and then I can take with my pawn, and then I just have my pawn structure in a better situation, and I can try to proceed with something like this, and try to exploit the pawn on d3 or something, you know? Some ideas that are coming to my mind. So, in this position now, you're facing the consequences of the things that you did before. So see how this mistake is not even the mistake itself, but it is the payment of all the things that you have done before, you know, which are making everything harder to play. Because now you're in this position and you do not have anything to do, and then you say, well, what do I do now? And then you're down on time and you have to do something, and then you play bishop d2, for example, and the position crumbles apart, right? So that's something to be considered. If you want to, we can play another game. I think this was an interesting one.